Chapter 14. Things are heating up. It took a moment for Connie's words to sink in. What happened? It looked like a medical complication, explained Connie. Something interfered with the medication he was given. The good news is Dr. Hillman is going to ask that an autopsy be performed so the cause of death can be fully determined. Maybe we can get some answers as to the chief's behavior during the past year. How long will it take for the results of an autopsy to come back? I wondered. It depends. Sometimes the preliminary results come back within a day if the death is pretty straightforward, answered Connie. If we need to wait on toxicology results, it'll take longer. For the full reports to come back, it can be up to 6 weeks, depending on how far behind the coroner's office is on other cases, and where in importance this autopsy ranks. It could be even longer if there was a murder and Burmer suppressed the autopsy. Even if the death was suspicious and could be proved to be murder, it would be too late to help Luca. I needed to find some hard evidence to get him out of prison. Thank you, Connie, I said gratefully. I appreciate all your help. I'll let you know if I hear anything else, Connie assured me. We ended the call, and I added the death of Police Chief Williams to my wall. Circling his name, I wrote drugged, murdered, beside it. I called Topher, filling him in on what George Kershaw had found about the bogus invoices. I sent him the same information I had sent Molly so that he would have a copy of what Armand had found with the evidence inventory having items missing at the police station. Detective Armand was on to some serious tampering, commented Topher as he looked through what he had seen. When I come back to the campground, I can take the original documents and give them to the legal team. Has Luca's lawyer gotten in contact with you? I wondered. Not yet. We're going to go directly through the prison tomorrow to find the lawyer's name, Topher informed me. We're doing everything we can. I thanked Topher again, promising to call him with any more updates I might have. With a last look at my confusing wall of clues, I walked to the office and collected cookie and cupcake. Remembering my car was still parked on the street in town and likely had gotten a ticket by now, I trudged along, giving my dogs a walk. I would need someone to drive me into town so I could collect my orange Volkswagen Beetle. Stopping at Thelma's camper, I knocked on her door. "Ivy," Thelma greeted me. "You are lucky you caught me. I was just about to head into town to give the surveillance crew a little late supper. The boys are getting hungry watching Acting Police Chief Burmer." "He might just be the police chief for good," I mentioned. "Williams died today." "What? Oh, no!" exclaimed Thelma, a hand pressed to her heart. "Williams was such a nice man. Well, until recently. I do think his mind was turning. He was a great deal more angry and rude this past year. His poor wife, she must be heartbroken." "Thelma, would you mind if I hitched a ride to town?" I asked. "I need to pick up my car before it gets towed from Main Street." "Sure thing, honey," agreed Thelma. "You know you are always welcome to keep me company for a drive." "Thanks." I helped her load an assortment of plastic dishes full of delicious-smelling food into the Mercury Meteor. As my stomach growled, I realized I had only eaten cake since breakfast. Soon enough, Thelma, Cookie, Cupcake, and I were on our way into Oaks Crossing. "Can I ask you something?" "Certainly," Thelma assured me. "How did you know that George was the one for you?" I studied her profile as she drove. A slow smile spread across her face. "You're wondering if Luca is the one for you?" "Maybe." I shrugged a little. I knew that I liked Luca. I enjoyed being around him, bickering with him, challenging him, and solving cases with him. It didn't hurt him one bit that he was handsome. And boy, could he kiss! "Time will tell you for certain," replied Thelma. "Whenever I'm near George, I feel like the world is a more vivid place. He makes me happy. I'm comfortable with him. I suppose you know that we used to be high school sweethearts?" "Bea mentioned it," I affirmed. "Then you know his parents didn't approve," Thelma said without any rancor. "We were young and had our whole lives ahead of us. Then George was told if he wanted a proper education paid for by his parents, he needed to go across the country to one of those Ivy League schools. We argued about it. George wanted to get a job locally and get married. I knew it wouldn't work if he stayed. As much as I loved him, George was used to a better life. I was white trailer trash at the time, so I made him a deal. He went to school and graduated. I would work and wait for him." "He didn't come back for you?" I asked. "I couldn't wait," softly remarked Thelma. "I was in a bad situation at home. Women back then weren't as independent as we are now. I chose to jump from one problem to the next. My first husband was not bad. We did okay, considering how poor we were. He liked to drink, and I was used to that. He passed away while he was drunk driving and hit a tree. George didn't forgive me for getting married for some time. He went on to have his own family, far away from Oaks Crossing." "How did you both get past the hurt?" I questioned. Thelma had a shrug. "Time. It takes time, perspective, and communication. Never doubt the good that can be accomplished in a proper conversation. George came back to Oaks Crossing a widower with 2 grown children and 4 grandbabies. I was a widow who had put a second bad marriage behind me, thankful that I hadn't had children who would have borne that marriage with me. George and I accidentally bumped into each other on the street. Then we saw each other at the market, then at events. The pull was still there. He was my best friend and the boy that I had loved. One time during one of our accidental meetings, we talked." "What did you talk about?" I wondered. "Everything," replied Thelma. "Just everything. We talked about the past, about how we had done the best we could under the circumstances, what we had gone through in life, and how we had changed, how Oaks Crossing had changed. We just talked. Then every time we saw each other after that, we'd talk some more. Then one day he started paying for my meals, holding my hand, and asking when he could see me. It took a long time, but we have a second chance. Life is short, Ivy. Take your chances where you can," advised Thelma as she pulled up to the Oaks Crossing Central Park. "If your day is made better by being near Luca, if you can talk to him and confide in him, then he's the man for you." I helped Thelma bring the food to a nearby picnic table, where Bertie and Oliver were waiting. "Anything new, gentlemen?" asked Thelma as she began to divide out the food. I handed out cutlery and mugs. "The weather's still hot." Oliver popped the lid on his dinner. "Enough to cook an egg on the pavement." "They say a thunderstorm's coming," mentioned Bertie. "Weathermen's been saying that for days. I haven't seen a drop of rain yet," scoffed Oliver. "I meant on the investigation," clarified Thelma dryly as she sat down. "The last container is for Lionel. Here, Ivy, we can share. I can hear your stomach rumbling." "Thank you." I poured out some iced tea from one of the thermoses Thelma had packed. "Vermin leads a pretty boring life," sighed Bertie, setting his fishing hat to the side for the duration of the meal. "He goes to work. He occasionally investigates something, but mostly he is at his desk shuffling paperwork from what we can tell." "Twice Burmer has been to the hospital to visit Chief Williams and Mrs. Williams," added Oliver. "He finally arrested Jason Kennedy's wife, manager, and girlfriend. Took him long enough to do that." "After Ivy solved the whole crime for him." Thelma rolled her eyes in derision. "Anything else?" "In the past few days, he's had 3 visits with Councilman Harlan Boggs," revealed Bertie. "They seem very concerned about something. Boggs was quite upset from the looks of it." "We know they are in contact," I nodded. "How about Burmer's house and car? Does he seem to have more money than what he should for his pay grade?" "No," sighed Bertie in disappointment. "It seems like he's living within his means. His house and car are modest. However, the guy does wear a nice Rolex." "Maybe he's being smart and not flashing around his ill-gotten gains," suggested Thelma. She had a laugh. A smart criminal for once. Very smart, I reflected, considering he was framing Luca for his crimes. We should have someone tail Boggs and a few other people too. I think they might be working together. I explained to them what I had learned from the clerk at the town hall, how the treasurers from the town hall all seemed to be having extra meetings with Boggs. My theory is that all of them may be embezzling money from the town. I'm just not certain how to prove it.
"The financial records aren't public property," noted Bernie. "It's not like we can just ask for them for a copy of their books."
"If they were being dishonest, the books would be misleading anyways," inserted Thelma. "True, but if they're using the same method by creating false invoices, then we can catch them at it," I explained. "The problem is getting the financial records."
"Why don't you just ask the mayor?" questioned Oliver. "Seems to me he has a vested interest in all this. It is an election year. If he were to uncover a huge plot to steal from the citizens of Oaks Crossing, he would be considered a hero. Easy win."
"Unless Mayor Wickham is caught up in the money-grabbing," theorized Thelma. "Then he wouldn't want anyone to find out the truth." "I don't think he is involved. At least I hope he isn't involved, because asking him for access is the only way I can think of to get our hands on the financial books. I sighed.
You will just have to take the chance and ask him, advised Bernie. Whitcomb likes staying mayor. I doubt he would do anything to jeopardize his position.
I'll try to talk to him again tomorrow, I decided. We finished up, Bertie promising to give the extra meal and tea to Lionel. Thelma packed up the empty dishes and headed off to her Mercury Meteor. I walked to where I had left my car, expecting a ticket to be under the windshield wiper. Instead, I found my car was missing. Drat, I muttered. It must have been towed. The only company that did towing in town was Mike's Garage. It was past business hours, but I gave him a call and left a message anyways. No doubt I would have to pay an impound and towing fee on top of whatever ticket the Oaks Crossing Police Department had decided to issue. I looked at the empty parking spot and decided to call Molly. I was going to need a ride home. The call went straight to voicemail. Hey, Molly, I'm in the town at the park, and I need a ride back to the campground. Call me back. Busy with my phone and debating how long to wait before calling the local taxi service, my mind registered the squeal of tires before I turned my attention to a black SUV swerving from the center of the road towards me.